Hey, Fanboy Nation.
This is your pal Daffy Duck, and you're watching.
We're watching Fanboy.
Fanboy, etc.
Fanboy Nation.
Dot, I assume Tom.
Michael, it is great seeing you again. Allison, it is wonderful to meet you. Congratulations on the docuseries.
Thank you.
Yeah, Michael, we spoke when you launched the Wonderland Massacre, the original podcast, and now we're talking about Wonderland Massacre and the secrets of the secret history of Hollywood. This has seemed to have consumed your life for almost 40 years at this point, being a reporter and now continuously dealing with this. Has it become the cold case that just won't go away, like the Black Dahlia?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, I think because of, I moved to LA in '87. So it was after these murders occurred, but like within a year of me coming and starting to write cover crime in the city, the case heated up again. So it's been fascinating to me since I got here. I also have spent time living in Laurel Canyon on and off in my years out here. And so, yeah, I mean, there's reminders of it all the time. The main thing, I was a reporter that not only in Los Angeles but in South Florida when the crack epidemic kind of ripped through society and destroyed a lot of young people's lives, and that's always been something that stuck with me. And so when I got invited, I was kind of invited. This whole thing started when a detective said, "Do you want to talk to Scott Thorson? He's quite the character, Zelig." I think the New York Times called him a Zelig of underworld Hollywood, which is a correct, apt observation. And so just talking to him, even though you had to decipher how much of it was truth and how much was embellishment, really kind of opened up this world that I had been fascinated with, at least for my beginnings as a journalist. And so that it kind of went from there. It's like, why not? I don't think the story's ever been put together. It's been written about, there's been documentaries, there's been books, but nothing ever put it all together because it lasted so long. And so that was the inspiration. Like, let me try to get my arms around this really big, unwieldy story that has a resonance that goes beyond who did this and who got away with murder, but into what happened to our society at that time. And so that was a starting point, and that was where the podcast came from. And then when Allison listened to that, I think it tapped into the same thing in her, and knew that this was a good story to tell that had a built-in resonance of importance to it.
All right. Allison, I'm going to throw out a conspiracy theory at you since you're the director of this and had to help compile the visual aspect of this based on the last 45 plus years. What if Scott was really the mastermind behind all of this? Because he was the last man standing before all of this was completed.
I don't think I don't imagine that would be the case at all. Scott was a flawed character in many ways, but a killer, a monster, that directly, no.
All the usual suspects is what I'm going with, the least suspected person.
Yeah, I mean, if people think that would be fun for them to think that, but I certainly have no reason to think that's the case.
It's just something fun to throw out there since he was the last one that lived through the production of this, and recently we lost Scott, so we didn't get his reaction to what the docuseries looked like.
Right, that's true. That's unfortunate. In fact, we found out that he had passed away. We were calling him to see what his availability to do press with us was going to be, and he was not in good health. We knew that, but it's a loss.
Does it feel safer for the people that, are still around to now talk about this? John passed away from AIDS in '88. Eddie Nash passed away in 2014. Scott just recently passed away. And virtually everyone that was involved in one way or another seems to have, been deceased. So does it allow people that were fearful before to now open up more than prior interviews?
You know what? I don't think so. There's because people got away with murder, and I think we don't name names in our documentary, but we had, I mean, you know, we don't name names because we don't have the proof, but there's people out there that are still alive, and we did run into some people who would not talk to us because of concerns of people that are still out there.
You know, when you decide, Alison, to take on a project like this and something that Michael has been so deeply involved with, you know, is there a relief for you in the sense that there's already quite a bit of information and now we can conduct interviews from a filmmaker or television director standpoint? Or does it create even more of a hardship as a filmmaker, as a TV director, to sit there and compile a docuseries to be able to tell a cohesive story that's as factual as possible, unlike some of the movies that have over dramatized things or underplayed aspects of this case?
I mean, what I loved about the podcast was the cat and mouse game that Michael had with Scott Thorson all the way through. Like, is he an unreliable narrator? Do we believe him? The story gets so far-fetched at times. And to be able to capture that visually, that was super exciting to me. And then convincing Michael to do this on camera. Because then you see that actually playing out. I mean, Michael's reaction sometimes to what wild things Scott says is just, you know, precious. And then with the detectives and the prosecutors, Michael's had long-standing relationships with them on other cases and working on in his novels too. So being able to have, you know, verite scenes with Michael getting information and piecing the pieces together, that was really exciting. So, and then there's amazing archive of the time. And then we shot some things to look like it was archive of the time. And then we clearly did some recreation stuff for some of the scenes too. But no, it was a really exciting challenge to make all that story come to life visually.
Well, it looks great.
My favorite thing.
Please, go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to add that when I saw, you know, I saw some rough cuts and I've seen the finished cuts. The archival stuff that Alison and her crew were able to come up with were pretty astounding, and I think they add so much to the story.
You know, I was going to ask for both of you, really. You know, Michael, you said in the first episode that truth is often stranger than fiction. I'm paraphrasing, where if you had written this in one of the novels, people are like, that's not believable. What was something in the case for both of you that you saw that if it was in a novel and you had read it, go, nah, I'm out. This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. This would never work, you know, in real life. That's actually stranger than fiction.
But it might be hard to start. There's a lot of stuff, but I mean, I actually think that, I mean, this is not something that's stranger in fiction, but I think Eddie Nash was such an interesting villain that he almost seems like he stepped out of a novel or a movie. But I mean, there's just that little story about how these criminals were ahead of the wave of cops understanding what crack cocaine was. And Thorson talks about being pulled over by cops and they find like a baseball sized chunk of crack and just throw it on the car hood and say, what's that? And he goes, oh, it's something my nephew was playing with, or my brother or something. I can't remember the story, but that is the type of thing that if that was in a novel, I think my editor would flag it and say, you don't want your readers to put their head out of their story and say, could that have really happened? So there's been a few of those things in this story.
For me, it's like halfway through Scott's story, I'm like, what? There's no possible. And then, you know, the capper for me is when he becomes a televangelist while he's in witness protection. It's like, are you kidding? That I wouldn't believe in a novel.
I had to pause that and rewind it twice because I was laughing so hard.
Yeah.
He literally had the guts to become a TV evangelist.
Yeah.
And side with all of this. And Michael, you asked Scott, and was his response genuine that he had a conversion experience, or was it like, you know, some of the exploitative TV evangelists or various prosperity preachers that he was just in it for the money and the notoriety?
my my take on it was that he got placed there through one of, witness protection and so forth, and he immediately saw how this could be financially beneficial to him, and so he pursued that. I mean, just when you see him being interviewed by on the TV, he just doesn't sound legit to me. He doesn't sound sincere when he's quoting the Bible and all that stuff. But that's because I also got to know him and kind of knew when he was, putting on a false face.
On the bright side, he read
But on the other hand, Scott's also the type of person I think that probably would have had a genuine moments in there that he, was probably did help some young kids because he went through so much as a young man. But I agree with Michael that his motivation would have been more financial than spiritual.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how 45 years later, we're still talking about this. One of the detectives, and please forgive me, her name slips my mind at the moment, said if this had happened in Alabama, we probably wouldn't still be talking about it. Is it because LA and at this time was such high profile where someone within pornography, John Holmes is essentially being the first megastar of pornography that crossed over into mainstream pop culture, was a part of this? And then the Eddie Nash story, here's an immigrant living the American dream, although in an unsavory manner, and everything that just goes along with it keeps the mystique of this alive.
Yeah, I think this is a story that could have only happened in Los Angeles. I mean, when you add all these things, you just mentioned a couple of them, but it's just and when you add that this Laurel Canyon was the place where this wonderful part of society all sprang from, the music and so forth. It's very, very much an LA story to me. And we wouldn't be thinking about it or doing this if it was the porno business in Birmingham, Alabama.
Alison, what's a sequel to this look like? The Exorcism of Laurel Canyon, where you just follow around several clergies from different denominations trying to exorcise the demons of this area?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the number of McMansions that are there now, it may be too late for Laurel Canyon. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if we go back to the Tate situation, the Night Stalker, O.J. Simpson, as the credits will say, this instance over here with the Wonderland murders, Eddie Nash living there, like there's just so much darkness in there. Does it almost feel macabre entering the area, knowing the stench of death that's been there for the past 70 years?
Well, it's weird. The irony is it's a very beautiful area. I don't live there. I live on the edge of it now, so I don't want to say I live in Laurel Canyon anymore, but I live literally 3 minutes from Eddie Nash's house. And that's one of the ironies and contradictions of Los Angeles, that it is so beautiful. And going through Laurel Canyon, you can just see, especially if you're in a convertible, you can see the possibilities that people have seen as they've driven through there. Alison uses that Carmen Gia to go through it in her the music documentary. You just kind of feel the inspiration. And so that's one reason why that a dark story that emanates from there is so contradictory, and that's one reason why it's so interesting, I think.
Yeah, it feels surprising that such darkness could come from such a place of beauty and light. If you look at any major areas in urban places, a lot, it's not like crime is unique to Laurel Canyon.
No, it's just because of the financial status of the area and the behavior that came along with it seems to be contradictory.
Yeah.
The docuseries is absolutely fantastic. I sat and watched all 4 hours in one sitting, which is hard to get me to sit through a 3-hour movie. But when it's a series like this, I can, sure, 4 hours, no problem. What has the reaction been from MGM when they saw the final product, and how pleased were they with the storytelling? And was there anything that they might have wanted cut from the final product because of people that they knew at one point in time that could have been involved?
They were super supportive, which they've always been on any of the many projects I've done with them. No, they didn't ask us to cut anything. If anything, they wanted us to put more stuff in some places. But so far the reaction's been terrific. You know, it's actually really fun to watch them all back to back because you just like, what? It just keeps rolling, snowballing.
It just becomes more absurd in the legitimacy of the storytelling, because you're telling an honest, genuine story, and here comes what's it called, Scott becoming a TV evangelist all of a sudden. You're like, I did not see this curveball coming.
Yep.
Real quick, since Scott, when he went into witness protection program, stole a local celebrity's name, is that celebrity still with us? And if so, how come? Okay, so if he's not with us, then it answers my next question: why wasn't he in the documentary?
He reacted very badly when he first found out, though. He was furious years ago because he had a mark on his back.
Not only was he just incensed that he would pick this name, but you know, it could have put him in danger. And who knows whether Scott thought he was like sloughing off some danger. Maybe they'll get the real Jess Marlowe instead of me. I don't really know. Never really asked him that. But the real Jess Marlowe was definitely, you know, sought legal. He was thinking about suing him and all this stuff, but ultimately he didn't. But just expressed his upset about it.
All right. Final question before we do the plugs and letting everybody know when all 4 episodes are going to run with MGM Plus. If you went into witness protection program, what name would you select? And then we can do the plugs.
Whoa.
I might steal in Philip Marlowe in the Raymond Chandler book had to quickly come up with a fake name, and he said his name was Doghouse Riley, and I've always liked that.
I guess I would do Huck Finn.
I love it. Remind us everywhere when we can start watching the docuseries, and I will give the official full name so no one can be mad at me: The Wonderland Massacre and the Secret History of Hollywood.
Sunday night, September 8th on MGM Plus.
Fantastic. Michael Connelly, Alison Ellwood, thank you so much for your time today. Congratulations on such an incredible docuseries. I don't think 4 hours was enough for us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.